Well, in what must amount to almost quarter of a century of using mainline baits, I've had some very, very good years, but I think one of the standout ones to me must be 2014. Start of 2014 was when I got my ticket to fish Burfield. I've always wanted to have a little go at Burfield, well, a main go at Burfield. Not the sort of lake you can dot about on, it's got to be the full-on campaign or nothing. I suppose I'd sort of put it off for years until I thought I had time to concentrate on it properly. In 2014, quite a lot changed up there. The lake had been sort of taken over by a smaller syndicate. It was more money, less bank space, but less anglers. And it seemed like sort of an ideal scenario to me. So spring of that year I pulled on there. I was on the hybrid at the time. Started like looking around, big lake like that, it's 96 acres I think it is. Got to do a lot of walking, a lot of looking, sort of see what you can, where the fish go, but I was quite determined that I was going to fish it over bait. There's quite a lot of fish in there, a lot more fish than most people will probably tell you there is, and some big fish as well. There's a big head of sort of 30 pounders into sort of low to mid 40s, as well as obviously the big common. And those sort of fish, those big old mirrors, they can eat a lot of boilies. So that was going to be my main attack on there. Walk, look a lot, find the fish, and then feed them. So like I say, it's April time when I started on there. I think I had my first fish on my second session, found a few fish in a little bay at the back. And it soon became clear that that's how the sort of spring was going to go on there, chasing them about, like you do on most big pits really, like I do here at St Ives. Always trying to stay on the fish. But as we got a little bit further in, probably middle of May, they started to form a few habits. They'd go out into the main part of the lake regularly. Most mornings you'd see fish showing out there. So it was that sort of area I gravitated towards, and that's where I decided to put my bait in. So, like I say, about the middle of May, started to catch a few fish, string a few catches together, find a few areas that they were willing to visit, feed them on a regular basis. I also had a few little spots tucked away in the margins around the lake. I used to bait literally every time I walked past. I'd put a handful in. On the way back I'd put a handful in the evening. I'd go around, just only a couple of little spots here and there. And I did manage to get a couple of fish off of them. I had brace of mid-30s one morning off of a little pre-baited margin spot, no more than 6 foot from the bank. But my main attack was always going to be the main part of the lake. There's a sailing club at one end, and then there's a gap of some bushes, and then there's the first swim, and there's about 4 swims in that main section. And I've been chatting to one of the head bailiff on there, and he said that they've got plans to make a swim up further near the sailing club, because I was saying to him that'd be a good area because there's a lot of sailing buoys out there, and from near the sailing club you could get an angle without the buoys being in the way. And he said it was going through, and he ummed and ahed a little bit, and then I got the impression that maybe it was manpower they were lacking. So I pulled him aside one day and said, look, if he could give the permission, I'd do all the work myself. I'd cut the swim, make it all fishable, and they wouldn't have to do anything. And within a week he agreed. So I turned up with a mountain of gardening tools. I had saws and loppers and strimmers and ropes and everything. And this area I wanted to clear was probably 10 foot thick and about 8 foot high brambles and old birch trees and hawthorn. It was jungle. So I just sort of got on the floor, got my electric cutters underneath and cut away all the roots, and then chopped into it like blocks and took it all out, chopped down the trees that were in the margins, cleared it all out, put in a couple of steps. Did it all on a Sunday afternoon actually, worked like mad, and by the time it got dark I had a perfect swim there. Wind was trickling in, it was in an ideal area. I've been putting a bit of bait out in that section. Everything really looked bang on for a bite, to be honest. Anyway, after settling in the evening, put my baits out, sat there with a nice cold beer and a barbecue, as you do in the summer. It was June, what was it by now? Early June, I think it was June the 10th, June the 9th, June the 10th. And I actually see a couple of fish top. And throughout the evening, throughout the night as well, the wind, it was southeasterly, started to pick up and really push in there. The more I sat there, the better it looked, it really did. And the early hours of the morning I had a bite, which turned out to be a tench. But that really got my heart going. Put the rod back out there, and couldn't have been 10 minutes later, I had another bite which was blatantly not a tench. And I hooked this one and plodded about a bit, rolled up in the margins, a nice mirror. Turned out to be a fish they call the original, which is one of the old Burfield mirrors. And apparently I found out since he's quite well known for sort of pairing up with the big common, but I didn't realise that at the time. Anyway, got the rod back out, put a few more baits out, spotted a few. I was fishing about 60, 70 yards, so it was easy to spot back round. And actually set up my video camera. I thought I'd seen a couple of fish top, and I was trying to get, you know, that rare footage of a carp coming out of the water, and I thought a Burfield carp actually coming out of the water on film would be, you know, top notch. So I set it up. The rods were just sort of just out of shot, just below, onto my swim. Just press play, and I'm looking out there, and one came out right next to an island. The old grey mirror slid out and boshing back in. I thought, oh, that's perfect. Just as he went back in, I heard beep, and then whack, away it went. Single noter from not the rod I'd just recast, but the one next to it, the middle rod, absolutely melted off, and you could hear it on the video. You couldn't help but hear it. I jumped down, grabbed the rod, bent into it, and the footage I've got is unbelievable. The rod hoops over, and all you can hear is the clutch just screaming and screaming and screaming. This fish just went and went and went and went and went. I managed to steer it. It went around a buoy to start with, and I clung on, and it kited back round and managed to get it in open water where it just made off. Unbelievable, unstoppable. Pumped it back in, got it nearly through the buoys. At the last minute, it flat rodded me, went left and went behind a little group of sailing buoys. And I didn't want to risk losing it, so I had a boat in the margins just for rescuing fish. So I jumped in the boat, life jacket on, wound myself out. The video's still going. I've forgotten all about it by now, but this is all still on video. Wound myself out into the lake. As soon as I got near the buoy, the fish swam back round it, and I let him tow me out behind the buoy line, so I was in completely open water, snag free, deep, probably 16, 18 feet out there. Perfect for playing fish. Anyway, I managed to get him up near the boat. I had a leader on that was just under a metre, and I had about this much of the leader left sticking out the water. And it stayed like that, I reckon, for 10 minutes solid. It was just towing the boat along. I couldn't get it an inch higher, and I wouldn't let him go an inch lower. And it was literally, I had the rod in front of me, bent, back of the boat was in the air, and he was just sort of pulling me round, up and down, up, down, up and down. I had no idea what I'd hooked, couldn't see the fish. Eventually he made a sort of a break for it and went off down towards the sailing club. And I realised then I'd probably had him on for the best part of half an hour, what with the bank and the boat. I wasn't getting anywhere, so I really clamped down on the rod and sort of knelt up in the boat and just gave it as much as I could. And I see the line cutting up and a little bit more of the leader and a little bit more of the leader come out. And then I see this massive great common facing away from me in front of the boat. I see the top of his head right down his back. And he just rolled up, and it actually came up and rolled over backwards right in front of me, like a foot from the edge of the boat. And I just got the net, held it there and rolled him straight over on his back into the net. And as it went in, as there was this much still sticking out the top of the net, I thought there can only be one fish. You know, that has to be the Burfield common. Put him in the boat, bundled the net up, rowed back to shore, and sure enough, whacked him on the scales, 55 pounds. 55 pound common. Absolute, and what a stunner. I mean, the fish is immaculate, absolutely immaculate. So anyway, phoned up a couple of mates, do the photos. There was nobody on the lake. Well, there was one guy on the lake actually at the time. He was fishing up the other end, so I phoned him, and I phoned a mate of mine who was only 10 minutes up the road. I just wanted to make sure I got them, you know, really nice photos, and I'm glad I did, because Simon, who came down to take the pictures, he's done a blinding job with the camera, absolute blinding job. I've got some of the best photos of that fish. And my favourite one of the lot is the returner. I've got all your classic side-on returners in the margins, you know, sun bouncing off a big bar of gold. But there's one photo, and actually the other angler that was there took it on my camera, and it's completely from behind, and it's me out in the water just letting it go, and it's looking right up its tail, across its dorsal up to its head, which is the exact view I had of that fish when it came up in front of the boat. It looks all brown and gold. It's just fantastic, just before I release it into the water. And that really is a memory that will stay with me forever, catching that Burfield common. That was a very special day indeed. I sat there, you know, thinking to myself, wouldn't it be nice to catch myself a birthday fish? And I looked at the bobbin up close, and it was literally, it was like it was breathing, it was just trembling. So I flicked the head torch off, looked in the net, there was this massive common in there, an absolute minter.